The Analyze tab is chock full of advanced tools that allow you to create and manipulate simulated trades, examine risk profiles, and explore probabilities. Let's do a quick overview of the various sub-tabs. All right, so we're starting here from our home screen, and we're going to navigate directly to the Analyze tab, and you'll immediately notice that we have 6 sub-tabs. We have Add Simulated Trades, Risk Profile, Probability Analysis, Economic Data, Think Back, and Fundamentals. And we're going to spend a little bit of time on each one of those, beginning with Add Simulated Trades. So we have that up here as a default, and we've loaded Microsoft to provide some demonstration. So you'll notice this is laid out just like the normal Trade tab. For today's example, let's go buy a long call on Microsoft, and then we're going to analyze it using some of those other tools. So I'm going to go down to the 17th of September of 2021, and let's come to the $300 call, click on the Ask Price to create our buy order. I'm going to minimize some of these other windows, and down at the bottom we can see that buy order is now ready with 10 contracts. I'm going to crank that down to just 1 contract for today's example. And now we're going to start to analyze it using some of our other tools. This is going to bring us to our second tab, the Risk Profile. So I'm going to come up to Risk Profile. So let me explain how this works. First thing that we'll see on our chart is the left column. This is our potential for profits and losses on that long call. So you can see profits up here, 501,015, down to loss potential, about $500. Now along the bottom axis, or the x-axis, we can see potential price levels for Microsoft. Current price of Microsoft is $299.89, and we can see how our call might be impacted if price were to go down or up from that point. And those profits or losses are reflected in the blue, what we call a hockey stick chart that's appearing on our grid here. For our options traders, we recognize that if the stock goes up in price, we have unlimited reward potential on our long call. If we go down in price, though, we can only lose so much, and so those losses bottom out here, just above $500 lost. Now this purple line just shows us how our call is likely to perform as price rises and falls today, while the blue line shows us an ultimate profit or loss at expiration. Another feature that's very popular for options traders is known as price slices. If I click to open that field, we can see how our position is likely to perform in numerical terms as prices rise and fall, let's say up 10% or down 10% from the current price. So for example, in addition to seeing how our Greeks might change as, say, price fluctuates, we can also see the impact to our profit or loss since we opened our position, or the profit or loss for the day as price changes and as time goes by. For this video's purposes, let's just show how the passage of time might impact the performance of our option by clicking the up arrow to advance the days and to simulate the impact of time decay. And you can see there in our PL open and our PL day columns the negative impact of the passage of that time. Now, if we want to experiment with the potential impact of the changing of the stock price on our option, we can come down and click on the gear in the lower right corner and make hypothetical changes to that price. So let's say the stock were to rise from $299 up to $300.05. We can see that impact reflected both on our chart and in our price slices. Let's go get acquainted with that third sub-tab, the probability analysis. Now, with so many options trades, the ultimate performance, the success or failure of that trade depends on a stock price remaining within a certain range over a certain time frame, and this tool actually allows us to explore that very quickly. So I want to turn our attention to this price parabola. It's the yellow cone that we're seeing here on our screen, and you'll notice that it's starting right around $300, which is the current price of the stock, and then it expands outward, upward, and downward as we go out in time. So the y-axis here represents price, and the x-axis represents the passage of time, starting with 0 days gone by, advancing out to 10, 20, 30, and so on. And this parabola is showing us the 68.27% likelihood of a stock staying within a certain range on a certain date in the future. So for example, if we were to look at the 17th of September, that's the expiration date of our option, we might notice that there's about a 68% chance that we are somewhere between about $285 and $314 on that date in the future. And you might be wondering where that 68.27% comes from. That's actually just one standard deviation. I think you can see the potential for the tools of this tab for an options trader. So now let's go to our fourth sub-tab, and that is economic data. This tab provides access and use of a database of hundreds of thousands of economic indicators and a time series from dozens of sources. So our fifth tab is Think Back. We're going to come up here, click on Think Back, and just to set the stage for this tool, this allows an options trader to explore how a trade might have gone, how a strategy might have performed had they been trading this at some time in the past. So it's a great back testing tool. So for example, we just did a current trade on Microsoft for a long call. What if we had done a long call, let's say, a year ago on Microsoft? Let's bring up Microsoft by typing in our symbol box. And I'm going to come over here to our date field off to the far right, click on the little calendar, and we can just backpedal through the months, and let's go back to August of last year. And once I select a date within that calendar, let's set this for August 13th for our example, the tool automatically retrieves an option chain as it was constructed as of August 13th, 2020. And to give myself a little additional space, I'm just going to click the arrow on the underlying, and we can now place a hypothetical trade as though we were placing it fresh on August 13th. So for our example, let's go to, let's say, the 18th of September 2020 options that were available on that date, and we could buy a call on those prices from that time. So I'll do the 205 call, trading about 1045. And then to see how that call might have performed with the passage of time, you'll notice that we have another date field. This is our profit or loss date field, defaulting to the date that we selected, and we can just advance that date forward one day at a time. And as we do that, we'll see that there are fields that are changing over here to the right. In particular, let's keep our eye on the PL open. I've advanced this from August 13th to August 14th, and I can see, oh, had I placed a call option on the 13th, it would be unprofitable as of the 14th. So we're going to go up to this final tab, Fundamentals, and we're going to retrieve fundamental information for our stock, Microsoft. So I'm going to type in that symbol, hit Enter on our keyboard, and we're immediately presented with a lot of fundamental information. We see right away analyst recommendations on our example stock. We can see corporate information, including a summary of who Microsoft is. As we scroll further down the screen, we see performance data on an annualized basis, on a quarterly basis. And even further still, we can see news-related items and so much more information that might be important to a fundamental investor. All right, we've covered a lot of information in the space of just a few minutes, so now is a great time to go and explore these new tools on thinkorswim for yourself.